Welcome to Complex Creatures, exploring spirituality and the common good.
We live in a world saturated with stories, music, film, media, podcasts, the whole bit. And in them contain subtle messages that shape how we see ourselves and the world around us. The question isn't whether we're being formed by culture, but how. Today on Complex Creatures, I'm joined by Savannah Locke. She's a singer, a podcaster, and an author with a book coming out. She spends a lot of time thinking about the intersection of pop culture, identity, and meaning. She hosts a show with theologian Lee C. Camp, who has himself a rather large podcast called No Small Endeavor. Savannah and Lee's podcast together is called The Subtext, where they go below the headlines to unearth spiritual questions and spiritual longings through pop culture and media. And it's an entertaining show hearing people from two different generations, but with one faith, reflect on the world. In this conversation, we explore with Savannah stories that form us and how art shapes us and how we as people of faith can engage pop culture. I find her to be an insightful, thoughtful, and very bright mind. I'm excited for her new music, excited for her new book, and I can't wait for you to hear her and get to know her better because her presence is growing, and I commend her to you. If you have ever wondered about how to take pop culture seriously without being consumed by it, well, this conversation might be for you. Again, thank you for joining Complex Creatures. If you like this or if it's meaningful to you, please like it, subscribe, and share with a friend. Grace and peace to you. Friends, today on Complex Creatures, I have Savannah Locke, a recording artist, an author, a podcaster, a Christian intellectual. Savannah, welcome to Complex Creatures. How are you doing today?
Great. Being introduced as an intellectual is not up my alley, so I'm thrilled
Well,
to
see,
be
here's the
here.
thing. I don't know. Do you call yourself a theologian? Do you feel as though you are a theologian?
I think that all people are theologians, so in that respect, yes. But I know that I do have my master's obviously in theology, and so that should give me something to go with. But I think in general, I try to stay more under the radar.
Yeah. I have a PhD in theology from the University of Nottingham, and I've been a pastor in churches for 20 plus years. And I still say to people, I feel like my vocation as a pastor theologian, and I always get quieter at the theologian part. That part is like, well, I'm not a professor at a school, and I don't have books. I mean, I've got publications, but not whole books. So I'm like, and I have the insecurity, but the reality is, yes, we all are if we
Mhm.
speak and think about God. But then in a formal way, you are doing the work of what I think a theologian does. Besides the fact that you write, you got a book coming out we'll talk about. You have a wonderful podcast called The Subtext with Lee C. Camp, who is a professor of ethics at Lipscomb and has a very large podcast that's now made it to NPR called No Small Endeavor. And there you publicly speak about theological topics, issues of the day, thinking about the world through maybe a Christian analysis. Tell us a little bit about The Subtext and how that show got started.
Well, I had the idea years ago to find an older scholar and talk about pop culture with them. And I have been in academic circles for a decade now, just through different
Mhm.
work that I've been doing. And I would occasionally lightly pitch this to some different scholar friends of mine. And they were always like, we love you, but no, like, we're not going to do this. So this idea had been in my mind for a while because I like being in between both worlds. So I love watching television and movies and listening to music, but I also really love reading serious theological and intellectual work. So I wanted to find a show that could bridge that gap. So whenever I met the No Small Endeavor team, they originally had asked me if I would work for them in social media and marketing, but I didn't want to keep doing that anymore. And they said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I'm not sure yet, but I've kind of been thinking about this idea. And they said, we've been thinking of that idea, like the exact same
Yeah.
concept we both had. And they said Lee would be perfect for this. So we basically just got set up on a little blind date, Lee and I, and we had to sit down and say, do we like each other enough to be on a show together? And that's how it worked out.
Oh, well, that's a really cool story. And
Yeah.
Lee's he's a very fun guy because he seems like he has this persona of being very old fashioned, but then also very graceful and open to people. And so he gives a vibe that he sometimes seems like he's teaching, and sometimes he seems like he's almost like a fatherly figure rolling his eyes at the kids. And he's a little bit of everything, but he's got a
He's
lot
a
of
little bit of
wisdom.
everything. Yeah.
He's got a lot of wisdom. So that's one fascinating thing that I think a lot of people who work in religion or theology or even philosophy are interested in, engaging pop culture. Uh, there's, you can get a book published on on the theology or philosophy of a show like Severance or Lost or some shows like that. Um, and I'm not sure it's always done well. I think it's something we're interested in because this is where people in the world are turning their eyes toward. They're giving attention to the screen or to the book or whatever, and that alone fascinates, but then we want to do a good job of engaging with it. Do you find it challenging to bring your faith to your viewing and reading habits? I know that you read a lot as well, or is that there a place that you just want to turn the faith questions off and just get away from it?
I wish that I could probably turn my brain off. I think everyone in my life would be happy if I could, but I can't. No.
Mm.
I really enjoy finding this stuff. So I actually have a tattoo right here of a poppy. Because I don't know if you've ever heard of like the story of poppies in California with the wildfires. But basically
Mm.
poppy seeds are underground all the time. And then when wildfires happen and they decimate all of the shrubbery in the land in California, the first things to grow back up are these, they're called wild or fire poppies, because the heat bursts open the seeds underneath the ground and that's what causes them to rise up. So that means so much to me as a visual. And I feel like it's kind of marked my entire life, where when I'm looking at things, whether it's television or relationships, or if I'm reading a book or if I'm listening to a song, I'm always trying to find like what's underneath it and see what will grow. So I really like that part of myself, that I'm always trying to look underneath and find the beauty and find like maybe the more eternal truth or concepts underneath it that I can learn from. And so yeah, I think it's so magical. And I think too, there's also such a divide that I haven't found to be helpful in some religious circles. Maybe not Lee. I'm hearing Lee in my head. Maybe not helpful. It's not realistic that a lot of people are watching television and movies. And so in my mind, I'm like, let's meet them where they are and let's help give them frameworks that they can look at these things through. And instead of demonizing those things as being of the world or secular or whatever, let's teach people how to engage with them better. So that's kind of my philosophy around it. But I would love to hear your thoughts. And even if that's true anymore in
Yeah.
more mainline
I
circles.
I had not heard that about the poppy. That's a really cool insight. My thoughts, well, we could go as simple as saying, the scripture's talking about taking it all, every thought captive, or, I become like the Greek to win the Greek, all these different engaging New Testament texts about ways to engage the world, or even the incarnation of God in Christ, where God takes on the world. But I was just with a group of guys for lunch doing a small group, and one of them quoted me back to me. And the thing is I don't recall ever saying it. But I'm going to take it because
Nice.
I
Yeah.
didn't mind what they said, right? And they were referencing a time when I think I might have been referring to watching or viewing something that some people find distasteful. It might have been horror, or something that's sort of non-pleasant, and many Christians might turn their nose at. And they said that I told them that horror often indicates or speaks to the fears of our society, or our collective fears, things that we're dealing with, and we do deal with them in narrative and artistic ways. Um, and then he said that I said it was important to at least in some way pay attention to the concerns of the world, so we can bear witness to the pain of the world. Or how else can we know how to speak into the pain if we don't understand something of the pain? So I think
Um,
there's a lot there. I mean, I don't think that means everyone has to watch horror, or read things that bother them or disturb them, or even give themselves to things that are immoral. But having an awareness and engagement with seems to me to be one way to love the people that are surrounding us, right? Um,
yeah, that's such a good way of putting that. I do
so
love whatever he said you said.
yeah, I'll take it. So many times people quote me to me, I'm like, I don't think I said.
You're
But
like, that
today,
sounds amazing.
that sounds great, right? Today on your podcast, the Subtext, had an episode drop today with Lee, and you talk about Netflix, and you talk about the shortening of our attention spans. And that is a concern to me. I wonder how you're feeling about that right now. I not only from a faith perspective, but how do you feel about the creative process? Because now you're also a writer and you're a singer-songwriter. How are you feeling about how digital art right now might be shaping the way we pay attention?
That's complicated, isn't it? It's difficult because there's one side of being an artist that is practical, where it's like, I need to make money with what I'm doing in order to keep making more art. So there's like this very practical element that you almost have to feed the machine in order to survive, right?
Mm.
Then there's this other element that's like an anarchist element, I think, that I have, where I'm like, don't tell me what to do. Like, I do not tell me what to do, and don't tell me that I have to do it in this certain way. So I'll just tell you like one way that I kind of resisted it in my own way with a record that I just released last month. It was called Songs of Peace in Times of War. And I did the whole shebang, right? Like, I'm releasing the songs through the distributors, I'm posting on socials, I'm doing the machine work. But for me, I wanted to have an in-person work. I was like, I want everyone to get together, to turn off their phones, and to have 30 minutes where we just sit down and listen to the songs together. So I had like 100 people come into the same room. We projected a bunch of artwork that had inspired the record on the walls, and we just listened through the whole record with no cell phones together. And that by far was my favorite part of the whole entire release process and all of the music releasing. And that felt like the most rewarding part to me. I will say though that with the attention as it relates to the attention span, when I told everyone, I said, hey, listen, I don't need pictures of me. I don't need content for tonight. Like, I'm not asking you to take pictures. So like, just turn off your phones and be there. For some people, that was very scary. Like, they had
No.
a hard time actually like releasing their own phones. Which to me signals maybe some more work that needs to be done around getting in rooms together and not having our phones with us.
Mm. Do
You
you
probably
think that
notice that during sermons, right? People are probably always on their phones, even in good
um
ones.
um I always tell people during Masters weekend, because the Masters is a huge, if you love golf, it's one of the
It's a
biggest
big
events of
thing.
the
Yeah.
year. And here in Georgia, it's a huge thing. And I'm always like on Championship Sunday, I can see the men's faces as they look down a little bit, checking the scores. And I give them a hard time, but yeah, you can't defeat it, I guess. You can't beat
No,
it. But
yeah.
that's the fascinating thing though. If you've ever gone to the Masters, one of the things that you learn is that you're not allowed to bring any devices, right? And I remember being in a clergy meeting. Uh, I have a cohort of people. So my church is one of the historic churches up and down the main high street in
Nice.
Atlanta. So we all get together, and this pastor came in. He just threw his hands up and goes, "Everyone, we can expect more out of our people than we do." And that was like a sweeping declaration. And we were, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "I was just at the Masters, and not anyone there had a phone for 12 hours. If that can happen there, we can expect more out of our people." Amen. We all, of course, he's preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Now, back to your launch party. Some people were anxious about it, but how did it feel overall for you? Did you think could you lose yourself in the experience, or were you concerned about the feelings of other people?
I had everyone at the beginning grab three pieces of paper, and I had them write three questions that they had walking into the
Mm,
experience. And then at the end, I gave them three more pieces of paper, and I had them all write three feelings that they had at the end of being without their phones, just being with the art and the music and being with each other. And everyone at the end, their words were like peace, calm, like clear headed. Like the idea of like when you kind of put in this work, a lot of the experience of it, once you get over the initial jitters of, oh my gosh, what if like someone calls and my kids, babysitter or whatever, like once you get over that initial anxiety, there's some calm underneath that. And for me, I definitely experienced, I didn't have my, phone with me all night. And I've been giving people the permission that I didn't need pictures of me. Like I didn't need pictures with them of me to promote the event, like that this is just for us. That felt like a big reclamation to me. where I just thought, this is not to promote anything. This is because music is a gift and art is a gift, and we can sit in it together and enjoy it. So that was kind of my perspective around it. And it was really, I don't know, it was a really beautiful, moving night.
That's very sacramental. I mean, it was not a means to another end. It became an end unto itself. It was the thing. We were going to be together. We're going to experience this, which is very, very lovely. As a creator and somebody who comments on pop culture, well, that's a little setup for the question, but let me take a side step and say, I think that there's the inner old man in me that sort of wags my fist at content being produced in short form or YouTube. It drives me nuts. My kids will watch YouTube more than a show. I mean, it's just their version of TV. But the shorts, the addictive nature to these shorts, and I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of, my mind is twisted about it. But you're a creator yourself. How do you make sense of that? Do you think that there is a good but a limit to the good on this ability to produce? What do you think?
When you find out, please tell me.
Right. Right.
I think like to participate in the system at all means that you're adhering to it on some level. So anytime that I have released a video or whatever, I'm fueling that system of short videos, of short content. And there's also a part of me that says, well, there is so much unredemptive content. Surely there's some good in giving redemptive content. So for me, do I have my own personal guidelines around what I'll share and what I won't? Yes. And I've talked about this a lot about on the show, and I've written a lot about this on my Substack, that I am never, ever, ever post out of emotion, ever. So if I'm upset, I'll write something for sure, but I am never posting in that same moment, because to me, that is where things can get really harmful. When people are posting when they're super angry or super whatever, and it's just adding fuel to the fire of like the algorithm. So for me, I have decided that's a guideline for me. I don't want to post when I'm really upset or, insecure or whatever. So I have like days that go between when I create something and when I share it on the internet. And that's kind of my way of creating a little bit of a boundary so that I don't, in my own way, participate in the negative parts of that short form content. I don't know how
Well,
that hits you, but
well, no, I think it hits me well. I mean, because I've heard you and Lee talk about the word prudence with this, and I think that that's an incredibly prudent, wise piece of advice for yourself and for others. But as a content creator, I mean, you want people to have a greater attention. I mean, you ask for 30 minutes, right? And so yeah, so it's just like, do you mourn it? Are you mourning the fact that people seem to have a harder time paying attention to even a television show that Netflix might tell their people to repeat the plot 4 times? I mean,
to me, it feels symptomatic of like a greater problem, probably,
uh,
where we're just so distracted and we're
mm,
always multitasking. Like, can you think of the last time that you really were just paying attention to one thing?
yeah, I mean, I have to work at it. I do. And so I got rid of Instagram and Facebook apps off my phone. I still have those accounts. I got it off my phone because I discovered I was at church and I discovered I walked away from something. I was just in my office and I walked away from something and I was just mindlessly scrolling. And then what pulled me out of it was realizing what I was scrolling through was ads, just being sold. I wasn't connecting with humans that I knew. And I go, what am I doing? And I just realized that I don't even enjoy it, right? And I'm only on those apps currently because of the potential to connect with people
Yeah.
um, for my work or whatever. I don't use them well. I know that, but yeah, I had to get rid of them because it was becoming a trap for me. So I have to like
It's
really
so
focus.
complicated. I know it
Right.
really is so
Right.
complicated, because I think about this a lot too as an artist. Like, I would have never gotten a book deal if I didn't have social media. Like, it
Right.
would have never even been on a radar of any agent to reach out to me. It would have never been on a radar for any of those publishers to offer me a deal. So it's like there's also this part of like the reality of how things function at the moment, while also the resentment of I wish that it wasn't this way.
Yeah.
And I think some people have been able to bypass in a way that maybe is a more purist way of doing things. I have not been able to do that. Like, I don't know how people are able to bypass having to do all of the song and dance in order to kind of get where they want to go or have a sustainable life. But for me, I'm always thinking in terms of like, okay, I'm building hopefully something that's sustainable so that I have like a long life of creating and putting beautiful things into the world and having an output of stuff that I love and I'm proud of. And so that's where it gets complicated, but I am not a purist. Like,
Yeah.
you can't be.
Yeah, that's the reality right now. Like, I think one time you had to maybe have a book to get an audience, but now to get a book, you have to have the audience, and
Have an
publishers want
audience.
to know that. And I'm in the process of writing and thinking about this, and my comms people, my friends will tell me. I mean, like, I have personally this aversion to self promotion.
Hmm.
I mean, I am, my whole life I was Gen X. And then when I was older, they said, nope, you're the first year of millennial. I graduated in 1999. I was born in
Hmm.
81. So I graduated last year of X. But and not that I really believe in all of that stuff, but I have enough pop culture formation in my mind that is so Gen X that I have this like belief and cynicism sort of against the self promotion. You got to be authentic. People have to discover you. I mean, so in my world, I would either I don't want to have to ask people to like something or look at something. I want someone to appreciate it and share it, and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And all my people say you got to get over that. You're gonna have to get over that right now, right? And I just so yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer for it at all. I'm just curious because you seem, in my mind, from where I sit, you seem to be navigating it well. I mean,
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I do feel there have definitely been seasons of my life that were worse than others. I would say in the last 5 years, I have figured out a way that I feel good about myself. Like, I don't feel gross doing it anymore in terms of like, I found a way that feels like authentic and that feels like it's aligned with my values. Like,
Mhm.
another thing that I say a lot is that if you see something that I've said on the internet, I mean it, because I just have a more rigorous process of releasing stuff at this point. So I am not saying things that I don't mean, which also helps. Where like I am not posting things because I feel pressure to keep up with an algorithm. I'm not posting 3 times a week. I post when I have something new to say and when it feels
Right.
relevant. And so I think too, those are like little mini resistances against the pressure of the machine, which I just literally cannot stop thinking about. This is all very related to Paul Kingsnorth's. Have you
Yeah.
heard that against the machine book? Yeah, which he's such
Yeah.
a purist in this way,
Yeah.
where he's like very against
Yeah.
like any social media or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I obviously am not. But this is definitely like, I think the warnings that he gives are ones that I have felt for myself, although I've navigated them in slightly different ways.
It's interesting. So I've not read Paul Kingsnorth, but I'm familiar with his work. And when I think about our relationship as Christians to the digital world, I ask myself, what would St. Paul do with it all? And I find that St. Paul would try to make every use that he could to advance like whatever message that we call the gospel. And yet the way in which these algorithms seem to work, at least now, and I tell some of my congregation a lot. I mean, like you're that one person who starts a post like, I never do this, right? Like, but now I've had it, and I'm going to tell you what I think about this. And
Yeah.
I was like, and you think that people of good faith are going to read this, but all it does is it's become fodder in an algorithm to be used to make somebody angry. So it's not even going to be sent to people who might even want to see what you have to say or be open to you. So it's just algorithmically being used as a tool to keep someone else's attention. And knowing that um makes me wonder how I should engage it further. So
Yeah. Same.
I'm still thinking through these
Same.
things.
No, I
Yeah.
really am too. My husband sent me this video yesterday of there's this man who mows people's lawns for free, like in low income neighborhoods. And he will do these videos of himself and then they'll kind of like he has like patrons now who allow him to go and mow different people's lawns for free and make them beautiful. And yesterday, the video that he released was him mowing someone's lawn in a lower income neighborhood. And across the street from this lawn is a church. And while he was mowing the lawn, the dirt was getting everywhere. And I guess it was going into like the church parking lot. And the pastor of this church came over and chastised this man and said, you have to stop mowing this lawn because it's making a mess in our church. And the man said, "Hey, I'm just letting you know I'm recording this. And so everyone's like going to see what you do." And the pastor doubled down and said, "You can't keep on mowing this lawn because it's ruining our church's parking lot." And when Todd sent it to me, I thought, this is a parable. Like, this is actually a good use
Right.
of social media. Like, this is
Yeah.
one of Jesus's parables of
Right.
someone missing the greater good in the heart
Mm.
of God in order to protect their specific religious system. And so I thought too, like, that's a really positive like way of having social media. I don't know. It was a
That's
parable.
interesting. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's interesting. So, do you have a hermeneutic in mind? So, for those of the audience who listen, when I say hermeneutic, I mean like a method for interpretation or whatnot, just a like a skill set that you take to reading pop culture. Do you have a hermeneutic for it,
Well, I mean,
or do you do it
obviously, when I think
intuitively?
it must be intuitive, because when I think about hermeneutics, I specifically think more about the Bible, which would I'm very, very, very shaped by Greg Boyd's theology because he was the person who led my program in my master's program.
Hmm.
And his is a Christocentric hermeneutic. So this idea that everything is kind of read through the lens of Jesus. When I think about pop culture, I'm always looking for things that hit me sideways, and then I ask, why did that hit me that way? Like, I always, like, whenever something hits me and I find myself tilting my head like a dog, I'm thinking, okay, there's something there. And then I try to go underneath and say, what is that in there that's resonating with something maybe more deep or true? And so, like, one example is I rewatched Gilmore Girls every year. This you would not be Gilmore Girls' target audience, and I want to
No,
name that.
I've watched all Gilmore Girls. I've
Oh,
watched
you
every
have.
episode. Yes, I have.
I
I
failed, and that's so not what I would have expected.
I went home. I went home and watched it with my mom every Thursday night when it was on, and then when my daughter, who's 13, got a little older and wanted to watch it, she also watches Buffy the Vampire Slayer as me
The dream.
periodically,
The
and
dream.
so I watched Gilmore Girls with her again, and I will say during the fall, it's a vibe. It's a
It
vibe. Put
is
on
the
Gilmore Girls.
only vibe during the fall. It is the only vibe. I was literally just like watching when I was cleaning the other day, a episode, like an early episode from an early season, where there is this character named Max Medina, who was one of Rory, the daughter's teachers. And Max Medina starts dating Rory's mom in this process. And it was weird for Rory because she was like, wait, you're my teacher, and I know you as Mr. Medina. But then outside of the classroom, like, I'm supposed to just like be okay with you being Max. And so they start having this conversation, and Max was like, "Hey, you can call me something completely different outside of this building. Like, come up with any name that you want to, and you can call me that, so that way you can create like a separation because I know this is weird for you." And I remember tilting my head sideways, and I was like, "That's interesting." And I actually pressed pause on the show, and I was like, "What's there that's hitting me?" And for me, and I'm still like kind of working through this idea, but it's this idea of how I think that God has a lot of empathy for people who, within certain religious systems, have learned him with one name, but there's maybe some pain wrapped up in that. And I
Oh,
wonder if part of like this healing process for people in still staying Christian, but maybe leaving some of the institutional baggage behind, is them learning a new name for God and coming up with this new name for God. And I thought, wow, that's a really cool picture of that. That Max Medina wanted to have this relationship with Rory, but knew it couldn't be the one that he had before because of the institutional stuff. And so he said, let's come up with a new name that works. And I just wonder if there's something to that of like God coming up with new names or new ways of engaging with people if it doesn't work in that previous system that they were in. I don't know. How does that hit you now that you're a Gilmore Girls person or because you're a Gilmore Girls person?
well, firstly, I never liked Max Medina with Lorelai. I have to say that. I did not like it. I mean, I was just the loot guy through and through, and I couldn't handle it. I didn't have enough love for but yeah, I think I really I find that to be a fascinating read. That is definitely a helpful way, I think, to teach that to people. Especially when you're dealing with people who struggle to hold on to the traditional language for God. And yeah, I live in a world where my church is very traditional. Stained glass window. It's a historic church, and people they like to cling on to language we've been using. So it's very I would say there's a lot of Book of Common Prayer language
Yeah.
in the liturgy. But we're in a tradition that when we will often go that likes to rewrite hymns and rewrite creeds to try to reflect a non-gendered God. And I'm
Mhm.
always saying, look, God is Father. The traditional language doesn't mean that God is male. Let's just teach what it means, and so I kind of hang on to this kind of tradition. Yet at the same time, I fully understand, the traps around it. So it's kind of a both and for me. But I'll
Yeah.
find myself around folks who don't understand the pain that has been caused by lots of folks. And so I think that would be a very helpful way to teach that to people. I think that's really cool. That's
Yeah,
really
I think
cool.
God as Father is a great example that has like a lot of energy wrapped around it for people, because people
Yeah.
are not only associating that with a gender for God, but also associating it with their own experiences of their own fathers. And yeah, I imagine that being able to rework that language. Is someone here to visit?
My son has been bothering me this whole
That's
time.
fine. No, bring him
Do you want to
in.
come say hi, Max, real quick?
Oh my God, you have your own Max. Hi,
Uh,
Max. Hi.
oh, I don't know if you
Here.
can hear. That's the
Hi.
puppy.
Hi.
What's the puppy's
Max.
name?
Max, this is Prudence.
See if I can
Hold
get
on. Can you hear now?
yeah. That's Prudence, the dog.
Hi, Max. This is Prudence. What are you holding in your hand? What's the yellow sheet of paper?
It's a note that I gave my kids telling them I'd be busy. What do you need, buddy?
When are you coming?
Give me a little bit of time. I'll come find you. Just a little bit. I'll see you in a bit. Love you.
We'll be done so quickly.
Shut the door, okay? Sorry.
No, oh my God. Never be sorry for your kids jumping in. You have to, that's totally
I have
fine.
a 13-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 6-year-old, and his name is Maximus, named after Saint Maximus the Confessor of the 7th century, because I did part of my PhD on him. And yeah, he is like my shadow. So
Yeah, it's like my shot.
he's been hanging out. This is a window here. He's been hanging out, waving at me, going, one thing. I'm like, no.
And you're like, buddy, you're like, I can't do this right now.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
that's
And
funny.
you naming him after St. Maximus also hits hard
Yeah.
for you as a pastor and a scholar.
It's so nerdy. It's so nerdy. But yeah. Yes. I think you and I might have a certain set of sacred kind of kinship with this, because I'll be watching Moana with my family, right? I don't know if you've ever seen Moana.
Moana's a good
And,
one.
and I'm like, oh, that's the Jesus story.
It
And
is.
I have family members who are like, no, this is based in Polynesian religion. I'm like, I don't care. The Logos Spermaticos, the seed of the gospel is there. Like she says, I've crossed the horizon to find you. I know your name. I know who you really are. And she's going to restore the hearts at Tafidi. That is Jesus Christ crossing into our world to restore the brokenness of all creation. And I'm like,
Yes,
that's a Jesus story. And
it is.
people roll their eyes at me because they're like, you do this all the time. Just watch the movie,
And
just
you're
watch the
like,
movie.
no, you're like, I will watch the movie and I'll bring additional meaning to it. That's the gifts that I can offer. And now you
Yeah.
can say I'm like a little fire poppy. You can get a
Yes.
tattoo for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like, I think it helps with some of the demonization of saying, oh, like it's not a Christian movie or it's not a faith movie. I think a lot of the times I watch faith-centric movies and I'm left wanting because it doesn't feel real a lot of the
Yeah.
times and it doesn't feel complex enough. And I think that to be able to find the beauty and the truth and the goodness in stories that are maybe not intentionally Christian or filled with faith
Mhm.
is something that is a gift and it like helps bridge the divide.
Yeah. I mean, so I didn't grow. So I grew up. Like some people, I grew up half Catholic and then half this other tradition. That was my mom's tradition. It was more of a Wesleyan tradition, and
Nice.
but I grew up with this love for beauty because of
Mhm.
the Catholic and I'm very sacramental in my mind and
Mhm. Mhm.
theologically. Um, and then in the youth group that I grew up in, it was just everyone was a lot more conservative and than my family. Like when I was growing up, I mean, The Simpsons came on and kids were like told they couldn't watch it. Well, we watched it as a family. And when I was 13, I got an earring, I got an ear pierced up. Kids weren't doing that. It was like people looked at my parents and like shaking their head a lot. But my mom and dad sort of taught me how to engage the world, but not just,
That's
of
amazing.
culture and not go into it. And uh, and then in seminary, I was taken by the philosophy of Soren Kierkegaard and his style of telling stories and writing in this indirect way to be creative, to make a point. And I guess all that really did shape me. And I would say today, as a mid-40s guy right now, I'm still trying to think about preaching that isn't just telling somebody to go and do stuff they already know they should go and do. Um, so it was the theologian Ted Smith, and I reference him all the time on here. He's wonderful, and he talked about how even preaching sometimes is I guess pushed forward greater levels of secularity. He's like, look, in church,
Mm.
you'll preach a sermon, 20 minutes, people are probably bored, and all they're learning is to go and do what they already basically know they should go and do.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
And if your sermon is only a means to another end, it's missing something. And so we talk about how in the sacramental traditions, it isn't a means to an end. Like the point is to be there for the event of grace, for the sacrament. Or in the Black church tradition, which goes on and on for many more hours than a typical white church, it's a happening. People are there for something. It's not a means to an end. It's part of the end. It's part of the purpose of life. And so
Mm.
I am trying to preach that way more, where my sermon isn't just trying to get you to do something, but to facilitate an experience that is
Inexperience.
internal. And that's how I feel about a lot of the Christian art you referred to, where it's on the nose a sermon. Like, watch this movie, it's going to encourage you not to get a divorce, or
Yeah.
it's going to encourage you to push harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, well, tell me without telling me. Show me, make me feel it, make me go through this process where it works in me and on me after I've done watched it or listened to it, right?
Yeah, the invitation to
Mm.
join in your own experience in your own process, it just that feels so smart too, where anyone can tell people what to do, but it's that part of like letting God, trusting God to do the work in people. So it's like opening up space and letting God do the work in a community of people, I think is so magical. I don't know if you know Brad Jersak and William Paul Young, but
Yeah, I know.
they
I know those names. I think I'm connected to them on social. I don't think I know them personally. Yeah.
okay, yeah. So they are very like awesome. I mean, theologians in their own right for sure. Brad is a
Yeah.
president of a seminary, and William Paul
Ah.
Young wrote The Shack.
Oh
And
yes.
they had this event like last year that I know Brad. So me and two of my friends went out to this event, and we were like, oh, we actually don't know the structure of this thing at all. I think they're going to do teachings. Sure, like we'll learn about atonement theories. I have no idea. So we like sit down and realize that all of the teaching was going to be pure experiential.
Mm.
So they like kind of set up some theological thought for sure. And they would talk a little bit about the Bible, whatever, but like for 5 minutes. Then for 45 minutes, they were like, invite God into your mind. What does God have to say to you about this? And you just kind of like sit there in silence and do this work of processing with God. And you can open it up to conversation with other people if you needed to talk about it. But that was far more impactful to me than any like retreat that I've been to otherwise. So I've probably been to like 100 retreats over my life with really smart people telling me really smart theology. But when I think about what has really moved the needle, it's been things like that that have been more experiential versus
Mm.
intellectual.
Let me switch questions a little bit, or switch focus, and that was lovely, by the way. But let me switch
Mm.
to this question I've been wanting to ask you. Um, do you see any elements of pop culture currently, right now, where I think about how to ask it? Areas in pop culture that seem to be fertile for theology, or maybe doing implicit theology, or places where you're finding connections, any more than any other areas?
Um, that's a great question. I've been paying attention a lot to Gen Z songwriters. Gen Alpha is coming up now too. So
Hmm.
I think Sophia Zella is like 20 years old and she might be at the bottom end of Gen Z and the top end of Gen Alpha. Um, and just trying to pay attention to what they're talking about. And I think for me at this point, it's more about learning and trying to see how they see the world. And something that I really like about that bottom rung of Gen Z and the top rung of Gen Alpha is that there's like a lot of good anger, especially from the female artists that
Yeah, I think I've heard
I'm
that.
pretty drawn to. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I've been really paying attention to that lately. That's something that I've been focusing on. And something else that I'm focusing on is there's like this wave currently in the last couple of weeks of television shows and movies about religious circles as it relates to women.
Mm.
So I'm thinking about there's this documentary series called Trust Me that's on Netflix that's about a fundamentalist Latter-day Saints movement relating to women. And then there's another documentary or television show that's huge right now called Unchosen
Hmm.
that is about like a kind of a sectarian cult in England that has a very dynamic experience as it relates to women. So I think that is going to be really interesting to follow of
Mm.
why are those waves of Handmaid's Tale type stories coming out again and what is that communicating about what people are thinking about.
Yeah, in a similar way, I've been paying attention to well, it's not so much pop culture in terms of film, television, music and writing. Although I see a lot of God coming out in a lot of that work right now.
Yeah.
Just it's coming up in different ways. I mean, I know that everyone here has read the no, Theo of Golden,
Yeah.
because it's a Georgia thing and people here know him. So like there's stuff like that all the way to um, um, well, you mentioned some stuff right there that's just on television, but I
Theo of
I, I keep
Golden, by the way, being
yeah,
so successful is a fascinating data point for culture.
it is.
Have you,
It
did
is.
you read it?
I did. I finished it the other day. I heard you and Lee talking. He said it's a bit saccharine or sweet, sentimental for him, but he couldn't put it down. I actually really struggled with it. I love what it was saying, but I really struggled with some of that, the formality, the language a lot. I was like, man, this is like a slog for me. I had just read No Country for Old Men and Fight Club, which are your grittier books, and then it served as a bit of a palate cleanser, but it was harder for me to get through.
And
And then
that's
I
like,
cried my eyes
why
out
did
at
it
the end.
take? And then I cried my eyes out at the end. This is what is so interesting and why I
Yeah.
cannot wrap my mind around it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that is tapping into something that is hitting a need right now in
Yeah, it
our
is.
culture. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what exactly is that hitting for you? Because it's not a realistic story at all. Like a
No.
lot of the characters felt very one dimensional to me. There's
Yeah.
some exceptions there, but it felt
Yeah.
very like stereotypical in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. But then there
Yeah.
was this purity
Yeah.
around him. There was this very like sacred
Yeah.
innocence to Theo
Yeah.
in this older boomer body that I'm like, maybe there's this
Yeah.
like craving there for people to have these elders that they can trust and that
Yeah.
are generous and kind and curious and willing to change. Because that book I is an enigma. I do not understand why it did so well. Not because I'm critiquing it as like a piece of trash. I'm not. It's just it doesn't make sense to me.
Right. I told some people. I mean, like there's the point where he gets to chapter 45, I think it's the Lord's Supper chapter. And I mean, well, at some point he starts mentioning Andrew Peterson and the wing feather. I'm like, oh, he's just like going straight, okay, all right, and Theo, the name. And but at some point I'm like, this book is all about attention. It's all about paying attention. And you can talk about grace and attention, but like he's a guy who sees. And in a world where people don't feel seen, I think that was real powerful. But you're right. Yeah, it's interesting and yeah, some good takes. I think people are yearning for people like that. Um, but I was going to say where I'm seeing God come up a
No,
lot
it's hard.
is just no, no, no. I'm just it's in the popular sphere of technology, right? Like I've never um as a pastor and theologian in my whole life, I've never witnessed this where I can listen to an interview with Peter Thiel and he can talk about the Antichrist and he can talk about the creation of God and listen to, an interview with Ben Sass on Ross Douthat and about I mean, like the politicians and thought leaders, and then let's not even go into Christian nationalism, but
Mhm.
when you have Hegseth and his pastor talking the way they're talking, all
They'll
in the
both in,
public,
yeah.
yeah, all in the public sphere. It is very interesting to me. And I'm also sort of cynical toward it, right? Um, lots of Christians, lots of well-meaning Christians I know want to make hay on it. Hey, this is our opportunity. Look at this is a great sign. And I'm like, I don't know that it's a sign of good. All I know is it terrifies me completely that it'll become instrumentalized or that it is instrumentalized, right? So it's just an interesting moment, that's for sure. And I'm not sure I have
It
any
is.
other hot.
It's a wild moment for sure. The whole like America reads the Bible thing that happened last week.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so interesting. Like, I feel like I should be happier about this than I am, but it just
Right.
feels like there's some teeth on
Yeah.
everything where it feels a little weaponized.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about Dietrich Bonhoeffer in like the early 1930s, he gave this speech that started with, it's very famous, you probably read it. That
Mm-hmm.
starts with "The church is dead."
Yeah.
And then he goes into, at the end of this speech, like basically speaking up against nationalism. And at the end, he said, don't say or even act like you take the Bible seriously. Like, you read the Bible for you, you don't read the Bible against you anymore. And thinking about like that idea of like reading the Bible for us as a weapon for us to use against other people, rather than letting the Bible be read against us, against our lives, to confront us and our own biases. And I think that's the shift that I see, is like reading God as for us rather
Right.
than, and I don't mean against in the sense that God is against us, but letting God confront us. And I think
Yeah.
that that's like the differentiation that I'm noticing that makes me feel a little uncomfy. Where I'm like, yes, I'm
Mm-hmm.
very pro God and the Bible. Like, I love all of it. But there is this
Right.
like shift that can happen where the power differential goes from up to down rather than pointing it on ourselves.
There was this rabbi that I don't know who it is anymore. I heard him interviewed on NPR like a decade ago, and he was doing a translation, and he was talking about doing unique, non-typical ways of translating like the genitive clause. And
Hmm.
so instead of saying like our God, he just translated the God of us. And I found that to be very impactful because he just switched the words around and it kind of jostles you out of some dogmatism because our God can be easily inside of that thing that we possess God or that God stands on our team side. When it's the God of us, no, it makes it feel like we have to be on the side of God in a different ownership way. And so I do feel like that shift is very important. And you're right. We're reading the Bible for us. God is for us, without reading the critique. That's always there. That's always there, right? In
And if you
the
read it
Texas
without the
scripture.
critique, then you are just going to harm other people. I don't know. It's like that. It's
Mm,
that thing where if it's assumed that I have it right,
mm,
that's where you can start doing a lot of danger, I think, in the name of God, because you just assume. Like, it's the Constantine vibe. You know what I mean? Painting the thing on
right.
the shields and on the weapons. What is that thing called again?
Oh, the cross. Yeah, I don't know what to call
The
it right now,
Cairo.
but yeah,
Painting the
Cairo. Yeah,
Cairo
yeah.
on the shields and all of that, just
Mm,
assuming like God is on my side as I kill you. God is on
right.
my side as I condemn you. God is on my side as I exclude you from these different policies or whatever. And it's like that harm that can be done is really scary to me at the moment as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about pop culture, but you're also a creator. As we said, you're writing a book and you have a new album out. For the last few minutes we had together, let me ask you about the life of creativity as a Christian, but as just a creative person. Where does your inspiration come from?
Um, okay, well, Stephen Wilson Jr., do you know who that is?
Steven Wilson Jr.?
Stephen Wilson Jr. Yeah.
I don't think so.
He's this insane songwriter. And I don't think he's very like Christian or anything like that. But he had this amazing interview last week where he said he was asked where he gets his inspiration from. And he said, I don't really ever listen to other people's music when I'm making my own. He said, because I think that being in the silence is where I'm able to find my own voice. I
Mm.
really resonated with that. That for me, the inspiration comes from shutting the F up. You can bleep that out. Sorry, Aaron or Alan. Like shutting up and just letting the silence do its work.
Yeah.
And I think to your point about Theo of Golden, I love that noticing of it really is about paying attention. And I know for me, like I just showed you my dog earlier.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll go to bed and Prudence will be laying on the bed just staring at me, and I'll realize I haven't even looked at you today. I fed her, I've taken her out to go pee, I've done the whole thing, but I haven't actually seen her. And I think for me, I'm at my best creatively when I've seen my life. Like I'll live my whole life for days and days on end, and I'll go to bed and not have actually seen it. And so I'm at my best when I've really made eye contact with my own life and made eye contact with God in my life
Mm.
and really noticed what's happening. But dear Lord, if I am good at that, no, I am not. But I'm
That's
trying.
it.
I'm really
Do,
trying.
do you feel like in creative act, you're participating in God in a way that is unique or special, or do you feel like it's just another way, another modality of participating in the life of God? Is it just one more thing alongside of prayer and something else you do spiritually, or is it
God, we do
exceptional in
need to
there?
talk about prayer. Literally, what is it? Like, I was just thinking about it the other day. I'm like, hopefully, all of this babbling I do counts as prayer. Like when I'm
Well,
in
how
the
do you,
car and stuff.
well, how do you pray? Like, tell me what it's like when you pray.
That's the
Do you just
thing.
speak? Do you
I
speak out loud to God?
and I think that my creative work is my prayer. Like I'm pretty
Uh,
sure that that's how I'm in the
mm,
ring with God, like trying to make sense of a lot of this stuff.
mm,
And if I'm in an SOS moment, obviously, yes, I'm in the car being like, help me, I'm freaking out.
hmm.
But in
Right.
general, I feel like it's this me getting in there and saying, okay, like I'm going to bear witness to what I'm seeing in the world. And like, God, like, show me what I'm missing. And I feel like that's where like the reciprocal nature of our relationship comes into play is with my creativity. So I hope that that counts as prayer. I do the Lord's Prayer every week at church.
It counts as
If
prayer.
that helps.
I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you it counts as prayer. Yeah, I'm very, yeah, there's so much. I'm very tied into a lot of ancient Christian sources, work in prayer, that our daily rhythms are prayerful, like that by living a life, we are already participating in the life of God. Being attentive to that is prayerful. There's different sorts of praying for sure. Hey, listen, I realized the other day, and it's probably the other day means the other month. I realized the other month
Yes,
that
always.
my practice of solitude isn't very good. That
Mm.
my daily rhythm is I get up at 4. On the best days, I get up at 4. I come here, I write for 2 hours, and then I go outside to a cold plunge. You don't know this about me, but I had a liver transplant 2 years ago, and I can't take a lot of pain meds. So that cold helps if I have that. So I do that, and then the kids
Hmm.
are up. So then now I go upstairs and I work at the table during breakfast while they're getting ready, and I'm moving on to church work. I try to go train, and I try to go to the office and all these things in the morning. Um, and I really thought for like a long time, man, I'm doing really well. I've got enough alone time. I've got time focused. And then I just had an epiphany that none of that time is without distraction. Like I'm listening to a podcast or an Audible book, or I have the television on, or I have music on. Even when I get into the cold plunge, that's sort of like I'm stimulating myself. I'm not allowing myself just to be in that state of silence and possibly boredom. God forbid boredom. So I then decided, okay, I'm going to spend the first 10 minutes of every day trying to reflect on God. And so then
Mm.
I lay in bed and I started thinking about, God. I would think of scripture, I would think of prayer, I would think of, gratitude. And then your mind does what it does. The monkey brain comes in and monkey mind, and you wander off, and then you come back to God in some way. And I'm so Midwestern that, it's like, oh gosh, Lord, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I forgot to, I mean, I'm such a bad Christian. I'm not a very faithful follower, and I'm now doing this to myself. And then just the light bulb went off again, that every time I do that is a chance to come back to God. And that's a gift. And so then I shifted it to now I just say a mantra, which is one of the Psalm of Ascents, famous one. I lift my eyes up into the hills, from where
Mhm,
does my help
mhm,
come from? So I just say that I lift my eyes up to the hills, from where does my help come from? And that's just my way of trying
mm.
to bring myself back to some sort of quiet stillness with God. And I don't know if I say much else. I don't know if I spend time praying for world peace.
Mhm,
Um, I don't know that I need to pray for world peace for God to care for the peace of the world. You know
mhm.
what I mean? But I think it's
Yes.
right for us to pray for it. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think we're twisting God's arm. I
Everyone
think,
put it on the
right.
record. Jared is against praying for world peace.
That's right. That's right. You got me.
That's the soundbite that you're going to put on your podcast and inflame the internet's algorithm. But yes, no, I hear you. So why do you think that it's hard? Is it just because of the state of your life with having 3 kids and blah, blah, and the church and all that?
Mhm.
Or do you think that it's a personality thing that makes it difficult for you to prioritize that?
Well, I think it's hard because I'm a human, and I think it's all hard for us to do that. I think our brains biologically work this way, and I think that all of us struggle with attention. And I think that the insights that I've learned over the years of contemplative prayer and meditation is that we don't have to do that well. We don't have to perform it well. It is the coming back bit that is the point of it, the coming back to focus. Um, and I do mean this by saying I'm so Midwestern. Like when part of the value system that I have in my own like just raising is like even when I found out I was sick with this late stage liver disease, like the mentality is I'm going to get an A+ in liver disease. Like I'm going to do it well, right? Like I'm going to be a good boy and get it all done right, right? That's the way it is with prayer. Like I'm going to do it right, and but the whole point of it is to bring that attention back to God, and I think that's the secret of it, and I just think it's who we are.
As the process of this process, which sounds like a very big health process for you of
Mm,
whatever that has been like, and I don't know what diagnosis you got, et cetera.
mm.
But has the lack of control in that area informed at all how you experience yourself in that Midwestern place? Like, how has it challenged that, and how has that shifted for
Yeah.
you?
You know what? This is a big thing because I'm trying to write a book right now, and the concept of it is on sacred, like pilgrimaging, because for a long time I was trying to write a memoir about my experience, but it's very hard for me to do that. It's like painful to do. And maybe that's
Mm,
where something helpful is born. But I also spent the entire Lenten through the first Sundays of Easter on a sermon series on pilgrimaging through Lent with Jesus at the cross. And so I was doing so much work on the spiritual concept of pilgrimaging and the way we see the world in an old and in a more medieval ancient way as opposed to a modern more the sacred terrain and all this, that I realized that so I should have also said the way I understood my sickness was a pilgrimage. So all these things have come together, and I want to write about it because
mm,
when you get really really sick, and there's a lot of stuff written about this, people often conceive of their sickness as a battle or a fight, and then some people conceive of it as a journey. And then there's the question of which one's better, because if you have an illness and you're in a fight and then you're never going to overcome the illness, like it's terminal, does that also give you like the sense of being, that you've lost, that you've failed?
mm,
And in my experience, when went through this thing, it was unforeseen. I didn't expect to get sick. It just happened. For a long time, at first, the fight really worked for me because it gave me a sense of agency.
mm,
Um, and then about, I don't know, a couple weeks into it, like you get tired of that. In a fight, you don't know if you're going to come out of the cage, right? So like that's exhausting, and it was a marathon. So then I really shifted to that journey language. But then for me, the knowing that I was going somewhere was very helpful, but I still employed the framing of fight periodically because it was
mm,
helpful for me to have short-term motivation for things that were really challenging. And, but at some point, I realized that my journey needs to go somewhere where I come away from this entire process, not just healed, but completely different. And then I just realized on a walk, like that's what a pilgrimage is supposed to be, a journey of
mm,
transformation. And for me, that is a great way to understand our lives. That's a way we can frame our lives. It's helpful, whether or not you're in a sickness or if you're just suffering spiritual malaise. If you can reframe your life as a pilgrimage and sweet, that you're going somewhere that's supposed. It means each step of the way you're anticipating this divine encounter and transformation. So I think all of this is still happening in me, still working on me because I've gone out and onto the road. I've had my encounters, and I've come back differently. But you should not, it's a constant process of changing. So anyway, we're not here to talk about all that.
no, we are here to talk about that. Yeah, that was amazing.
Listen, I'm going to let you go, but tell me about your new book. Tell us the title. Tell us what it's about. Tell us who published it, when it's coming out.
Well, this is coming out in a year, so we have plenty of time. It's called Every Question Jesus Asked. It's being published by Simon and Schuster up in New York, and
Wow.
it will come out, yeah, like right before Easter time, which is really exciting. They were like, it's a
Wow.
very Jesus-y time of year, and I agree. And so will be
Jesus-y time
very
of year.
A Jesus-y time of year. Yeah, so I'm super excited about that. And the record that I talked about with the release
Yeah.
party was called Songs of Peace in Times of War, which I named in August of last year, which is kind of
Oh,
wild to think about. Yes, I know.
yes.
So
Wow.
very convenient timing. Yeah, but
Can
you're a
you can
delight.
you
This
write
is so
an
great.
can you write an album right now called Everyone's Flourishing, and it'll come out later, and then maybe we'll all be flourishing and doing well?
Literally, I totally should. It's
Yeah.
like I'm gonna
Yeah.
do it and speed release it. It will come out next month. Let's just get
Yeah.
this on a better track.
What's your website where we can hear your album, and tell us about the podcast and where people can find that too?
Oh yeah, the Subtext is the podcast that Jarrod talked about earlier with me and Lacey Camp. And all of this is just on God's internet. So wherever you want to find me, you can. My name is Savannah Locke, and I'm just everywhere on the internet.
All
So
right.
you do know.
Well, Savannah, thank you so much for joining Complex Creatures.
Get 'em.